In 1858, Gaspard Felix Nadar, a French balloonist and photographer, took the first known photograph from the sky. Nadar was born in Paris in 1820. He would become a prolific French cartoonist and writer, the most famous photographer of his time, a national hero for his ballooning adventures, a constant innovator, a friend of impressionists, and a flamboyant showman under the pen name Nadar. Nadar took the first aerial photographs in 1858. He accomplished this by photographing Paris from a tethered balloon at a height of 1,600 feet. Much of his success stemmed from his inability to be stopped. Many people who knew him remarked on his boyish zeal, his never-ending cheerful egoism, always questioning attitude, his creativity in devising unexpected solutions, and determination to put those solutions into action. He was also adept at making and maintaining friendships. He seemed to know almost everyone who was important in Paris. He once claimed to have 10,000 friends. Nadar relished the opportunity to be put to the test. Nothing made him want to do something more than being told that he couldn't. Quote, "Nothing is easier than what has already been done. Nothing is more difficult than what will be done tomorrow." End quote. This was his catchphrase. Photography was becoming increasingly popular around this time, and it quickly became Nadar's main interest, something that he would pursue for the rest of his life. Because of his talent, personality, and business sense, he would eventually become one of the most famous of the more than 300 professional photographers working in Paris in the 1860s. Portraits were Nadar's primary source of income. A large portion of the general public had no idea what photography was all about or how it worked. It's said that a woman who visits his studio, she simply asks him to paint a portrait of her husband, who actually died 2 years earlier, because she heard that photographs are more accurate than paintings. Nadar believed that while photography could be learned by any imbecile, the ability to appreciate the effects of different and combined sources of light was a skill that could only be learned through practice. The moral understanding of the subject, that instant tact which puts you in communication with the model and enables you to give the most convincing and sympathetic likeness, an intimate resemblance, could be learned by even less than this. Again, another one of his famous quotes. Nadar was enthralled by the prospect of human flight. As a result, he began hot air ballooning in the 1850s, and to him, there was an urgent and intense invitation to the lens when he was in the sky. He felt compelled to capture that image the best he could. First, he had to figure out how to keep the balloon steady enough to use photography as his primary platform. This was avoided by only using the balloon in calm conditions, tightening the cables to an extreme degree, and decreasing the shutter speed on his camera. Excess hydrogen gas from the balloon's escape valve, which normally needs to be open, was contaminating the developing plates after many trials. His solution was simple, though. Keep the valve closed and enclose the camera in a thick, insulating tent. Unfortunately, we don't have access to those images. They were taken in 1858. And because they have since been destroyed and lost to time, we may never know what they look like. He experimented for 3 years before he was able to take his first successful aerial photograph. This aerial photograph of Petit-Picteur, France, was captured from an 80-meter-high hot air balloon. For a time, Nadar was convinced that aerial photography would be an invaluable tool for surveying, mapping, and even espionage. In 1863, he began working on the world's largest hot air balloon, which he completed in 1864. It was nearly 200 feet high and contained 200,000 cubic feet of hydrogen in a balloon made of nearly 12 miles of silk. According to the rumor mill, it took 200 women a month to put it all together. The wickerwork gondola of the hot air balloon was the size of a small cottage, and it featured a photo studio, a dining area, a bathroom, and a billiards table. This colossus of the skies could be seen for miles around. About a third of Paris's population flocked to see the first flight from the Champ de Mars. A military band played. 4 white horses towed the gondola into place, and the paying passengers and crates of champagne were loaded. Off they took. And unfortunately, a valve line malfunctioned, and it forced their premature descent into a swamp only 25 miles away. Nadar described how they were dragged aloft at nearly the normal speed of an express train. It took him 2 weeks to plan and prepare for the next flight, which was 400 miles and lasted 14 hours. At the end, they were unable to slow down. The balloon raced across the fields and woods, tearing through branches and bouncing off the ground like an enormous rubber ball. It narrowly avoided colliding with the train before it finally blew up. The passengers, who had either jumped out or were thrown to the ground, were stranded. These are interesting things with JC.